Hi, welcome to Using Picture Books to Facilitate Student-Centered Explorations of Difficult Topics. I'm Zena, and Zena Pliska, and I am a kindergarten teacher, TK kindergarten teacher in Los Angeles for LAUSD. UTLA is my union, of course, and a proud member of CTA. And I'm also a picture book author. I wrote Hello, Little One, a Monarch Butterfly story, which came out in 2020, and Egyptian Lullaby, which comes out April 18th of this year.
Yeah, so it's me. Hi, my name is Benson Shum. I am a children's book author and illustrator. These are two of my latest books, Onto the Great Listener and Onto the Great Kaiju. And I am also a Disney animator, and I've been animating for about 20 years, and I've been writing picture books for about 5 years. And yeah, that's me. So I guess I'll pass it on to Lee.
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Lee Wind. I am an author of picture books and books for teens. The picture book I'll be talking about today is Red and Green and Blue and White. And I'm also the author of No Way They Were Gay, which is a nonfiction, and a novel, Queer as a $5 Bill. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you all for watching this recording. Laura.
Hi, my name is Laura LaCamera, and I'm a author and illustrator of bilingual picture books. And I don't have them right now to show, but I will show them in the slides. And I guess that's about it. What else am I going to say? I hope you enjoy the presentation, and thank you for having me.
All right, now with that, I am going to get us started. So I'm going to start off my personal feeling is that the single most important job of a teacher is to listen. I spend my entire day, as probably most of you, listening to students. A couple of strategies. So I use a Reggio-inspired approach, and a couple of strategies actually that I use to create a pedagogy of listening and a culture of listening in my classroom so that we're listening to each other. They're not listening to me. We're all listening to each other. Are some strategies from a Reggio-inspired approach, but also I use a council practice, which basically is just every morning we sit in a circle and we pass a talking stick. Right now with COVID, we pass a virtual talking stick, and we check in. And so for me as a teacher, each person holds their own power when they're talking. So I'm not directing it. I'm not facilitating it. I am listening along with everybody else. Everybody knows that they're going to get heard, and everybody hears. So what is really lovely about that is the fact that it gives me a quick pulse into as to what's happening for each person in class. And today we did it. It was a rainy day, and a lot of kids checked in and said, I'm happy, and then they usually tell us why. And I had one student say he was happy but a little sad, and then he talked about expecting to go to his father's, which I think is a brand new thing for him, his parents splitting up. And that gave me right there that pulse of, okay, now I know what's happening. I know it's alive and well for him, or alive for him in this moment. And I can now move accordingly and try and hear and listen in a little bit more to see if he needs some support, or if we could all use a little conversation, not during council, but throughout the day. So council's a strategy. I'm just trying to talk so you can also read it. I don't want to read from the actual slide, but basically it's sitting together in a circle, passing a talking piece. I use it to check in for feelings and emotions and to build emotional literacy so that we also use words other than just happy. We use joyful and excited and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's also about building vocabulary so that we can talk about our feelings with lots of different words. And you can see that if you go to centerforcounsel.org, there are definitely some resources there. As I also mentioned, I use a Reggio-inspired philosophy to build a culture of listening in my classroom. It is indeed a pedagogy of listening. It's an approach to teaching in which the most important thing is the image of the child, that they are capable, that they are curious, that they are that they move forward with best intentions. It is a child-led, child-emergent approach to teaching, and it really draws out, again, what's alive for that child in that moment, and it forces me to listen. And then a lot of what happens as well with a Reggio-inspired approach. This slideshow is uploaded, so if you want to look at it later, you can get it. Is documentation. So documentation, I have to say, in every minute of every day, I am listening to children and I'm hearing what is alive for them. But also, in addition to that, I'm also transcribing what they're talking about when they're playing, when they're working together in projects, when they're creating projects, when they're telling stories together. I am sitting on the side writing down verbatim what they're saying so that I also have a record, and I also am just a little bit deeper into what is important to them in that moment. So again, you can see the Reggio approach. There's a website there for you. Through the process of observing, interpreting, and documenting the process of children's learning, educators demonstrate, like I said before, a pedagogy of listening and way to children in ways of respecting and supporting them as individuals as they make sense of their world. It also informs how you move forward. It's very process-oriented. And it really makes learning visible. It really helps to understand what's happening cognitively with that child. It also helps you as a teacher find the relationships between ideas and emotions and situations, and then you can move forward as a group. So it helps with group dynamics and constructing knowledge together. It's an approach that is considered to be social constructivism. So difficult topics surface organically when students feel heard, has been my experience. I've been at this since 1985. How can we support students when uncomfortable topics emerge? So I think a lot of times for teachers, you can do a number of things, but there are kind of two things you can really do. You can lean in and listen in, you can listen in, you can lean in, you can address, you can support, or you can shut it down and move on because, you know, there are other things that are at hand and maybe it's easier sometimes just to shut it down. But I think when we shut it down, then it doesn't become a safe place, right? So if children are having big feelings or uncomfortable topics are alive for them, then we miss the opportunity to be a safe place for them. So picture books are a great way to elicit student-led discourse around difficult topics. They are written for young children, and authors, the editorial team, publishers take great pains to create developmentally appropriate stories using accessible language. And here's an example: Understanding Life Cycles, Exploring Grief and Loss. So this is my book, Hello Little One, a Monarch Butterfly Story. is an intergenerational friendship tale about a young monarch caterpillar and an elderly monarch butterfly. Both characters experience their place in their part of the monarch butterfly life cycle. On a spoiler alert, the elder butterfly comes to the end of its life cycle during this relationship, and the caterpillar is left to experience its grief. So teachers should not feel obligated to answer questions, but rather should feel empowered to facilitate student-led questions. So building the conditions for that to emerge. While students are developing more questions with the teacher's encouragement, teachers can provide more picture books to expand the conversation. I'm not sure if you can see this, but use other titles to expand the student-led conversations, questions, and discoveries. So I pulled these off the Los Angeles Public Library site. I know for, books are $20 each. I know for most of us, we can't run out and buy everything. So libraries are our friends. Encourage connections between student stories and observations. Your students may not come to any conclusions, and that's okay. It is in the discussions and connections to pure ideas and stories where the learning takes place. So try to value process over product. Resist the temptation to give answers that stop the flow of connections. Trust that the expertise is in the room. I do that with my 5-year-olds. I assume that the expertise is in the room. It's my job to surface it. And that's not my quote. And I have to say, 9 times out of 10, if I would step back and wait to surface it and wait and build those conditions so that it occurs, using picture books, allowing for discussion, stepping back, getting out of their way, it surfaces, and then they support each other. These are just a few titles. I know I'm going kind of fast, but it's a video, so if you want to look at them, you can relook at them again. And that is me, if you'd like to find me. And I'm going to figure out how to turn this off. Yay, I did it. All right, passing off to Benson.
Great, thanks, Tina. Hi, I'm just gonna screen share and then we'll jump into it. 1 second. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do a quick intro again. So thank you again for having us. So my name is Benson Shum. I'm an author, illustrator, and animator at Disney. I've written and illustrated 7 books, with 3 coming out in 2023 and another 3 in 2024. I'm also excited to share my insight into the process when creating stories and characters. So the first book I'm going to talk about is called Little Seed. And so Little Seed is about a little seed who wants to hug the whole world, but his arms are too small. And with the help of Mama Earth, they learn about different ways to hug the whole world. So one of the most challenging things writing is in picture books is the first few lines, because you want to encompass who this character is, their wants and needs and struggles in just a few pages. So I thought I'd read you the first couple of pages from Little Seed. Every morning, Mama Earth gave Little Seed a great big hug to show her love. I wish I could hug the whole world, Little Seed said, but my arms are too small. Yes, you may be small, my love, but your heart is big, Mama Earth said. So Mama Earth and Little Seed soared high above to shower the earth with more love and light. As they flew over the land, Little Seed spotted some friends who needed hugs. So when I wrote this story, I didn't intend for it to be a board book, but as a picture book. But to our surprise, we found that it really connected with the really young ones as well as the adults. So what I intended was to write a story about all kinds of love, but I want to use animals as a metaphor for people. So how everyone is different, but we all love the same way. But as I revised and revised, I thought maybe hugging is a way to show love, and everyone hugs differently. So some love to hug with tickles. So example would be, how do you hug an elephant who's as curious as you? With tickles, wiggles, and giggles. So some are shy. So how do you hug a lion cub who's quiet and shy? With an open hand and a nuzzle, so you wait for them to come to you. And how do you hug an armadillo who wants to be alone? You don't. You give space. So we're talking about respect and boundaries. And then so the next book I'm going to talk about is called Anzu the Great Kaiju. And so this one's about a picture book about a tiny monster with a big heart trying to follow in his family's footsteps. So for those that don't know what a kaiju is a Japanese term for giant monsters. So an example of a kaiju would be Godzilla, or even King Kong's a kaiju. And so we know Godzilla's or kaijus destroy their cities and create chaos. And great kaijus have superpowers of thunder, lightning, or fire. But Anzu's superpower is flowers. So how can Anzu bring destruction with flowers? Or does he want to? What if they want to bring kindness and joy instead of chaos? So characters are a big part of my book. I really love to kind of develop who they are. And I want to give Anzu depth and layers. I first intended to write a book about monsters with superpowers, and that was it. But then as I thought more about who this character was and who Anzu was, like what did he want, and get deeper into that. As the story evolved, like I thought about what was his struggles, how does that affect his family dynamics and the world around him. Anzu wanted to be a great kaiju, but he wasn't what everyone expected of him, and in this case, his family. So how does he deal with that? How does he avoid disappointment? What will happen if he is his true self? So I'm going to read you the first couple of pages. All great kaiju are born with a superpower to strike fear in the heart of the given city. Anzu wants to be a great kaiju and make his family proud. But he had one problem. Anzu was born with the power of flowers. Anzu wasn't what you would call terrifying, and he always found the beauty in small things. So through that, we add another layer where we talk about expectations. Like what makes a great kaiju? Is it power? Is it destruction? Is it aggression? Anzu is powerful in his own way, but not what everyone around him saw that. Anzu is powerful because he cares, he's kind and thoughtful, and that's what makes him a great kaiju. The next book I want to talk about is called Anzu the Great Listener, which actually just came out this month. So in this follow-up to Anzu the Great Kaiju, we follow sweet and well-intentioned Anzu as he learns valuable lessons about patience, empathy in the face of sadness. So writing a sequel is always difficult because we think about like what's next for our character, what's next for Anzu. We thought to explore what will Anzu do with his superpowers now that he's embraced them. So we thought to tap into the mind of Anzu and his emotions and how he processed things. And that's how we came to Anzu the Great Listener. So here are the first couple of pages. Anzu loved to tend to his bonsai. Whenever he felt overwhelmed or unsettled, it helped him pause and reminded him to just breathe. He pruned when the shoots overgrew. He watered when the soil felt dry. He repotted when the roots needed space. And he listened closely for the buds to be ready. Anzu couldn't wait for his bonsai to bloom. One day, a somber cry pulled Anzu out of his zen. His neighboring city wailed and wept. "Are you okay?" Anzu asked. So in this, we're learning about the importance of patience and listening when faced with sadness. So sometimes the best thing we can do is to wait and listen instead of trying to have a quick fix. Because first Anzu tries to use his flower powers, as we learned from the first book, to help those in need. But what if it didn't work? What if it made it worse? So how do we add another layer to this character, to this story? I thought Anzu loved to garden, so I used bonsai, which is a Japanese miniature tree, as a metaphor. So you need patience, tenderness, and care to grow a bonsai. And when the time came for his bonsai to bloom, he understood what to do. So the more insight we get into the character, the more we can relate to them. I also want to add that I do have a couple of teacher's guides made for both Anzu the Great Listener and Anzu the Great Kaiju. They're created by a fellow author as well as a former educator, Marcy Colleen. So feel free to download them on my website under activities. And that is it. So thank you so much for listening. And I'll pass it on to Laura. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. There you go.
Oh, thanks, Benson. I would like to start by sharing my screen as well. Let's see. Cross your fingers. Oh, oops. Okay, let's see. Oh. Okay. All right, so everybody can see that. Hi, my name is Laura LaCamera, and I'm a Cuban-American author illustrator. And I'm going to share my bilingual picture books today and talk about the creative process that went into making them. Here's also my information. Let's see. So I'd like to first start with a little background about myself. When I first came with my family to the United States from Cuba, where I was born, I felt different from the other kids in my class, or my school too. So here's a picture of, oh, I can't just, how do I pass to the next screen? Picture. Okay. So I don't know why that wasn't working at first, but here's a picture of me with my second grade classmates. And I bet you can guess which one is me. Now, it was bad enough that I only spoke Spanish, no English, and that I brought different food in my lunch from the other kids. But did I have to look different too? Back then, I just wished that my hair was the same as the other girls' hair. But it was more than just a wish. I used to come home every day from school and beg my mother to lighten my hair. I convinced myself, and eventually my mother, that this was the ticket to fitting in and making friends. So one day, to my delight, my mom sat me down to lighten my brown hair just a shade. Unfortunately, she didn't understand the word peroxide that was written on the label of the dye. The promised light brown shade turned to a bright orange red. And I had to go to school the next day. No excuses. Everyone stared and asked questions. I told people that I swam in an over-chlorinated pool over the weekend. And some people believed me, but I was mortified. I went from being different and wanting to blend in to being shockingly different and really sticking out. Eventually, things worked out. I got my brown hair back, and I made friends regardless. So what does this all have to do with my books? Well, trying to pass to the next slide, but it's not working. Is there a way to pass to the next slide, anybody?
Is there an arrow button? Can you click on the arrow button to the right or left?
I'm clicking, yeah. Arrow button on my keyboard.
Laura, you might need to
arrow
click
button?
into that window first, and then
Any help? Huh?
you might need to click into that window first. So just click anywhere in the white space right there, and then
Okay,
on the
thank
arrow.
you. That's what was happening. Thank you. I'm sure that'll be edited out. So
Is it easier, Kyle? Is it easier if she starts over, or is it easier to pick it up in the middle?
It's okay. We can pick it up from here, and then I'll just cut that part out where she was having difficulty switching slides, but it should be okay.
All right.
Okay, so what does all that have to do with my books? Well, it was this childhood experience that inspired me to write and illustrate a book about a girl whose hair is very different from everybody else's. Dalia's Wondrous Hair, El Cabello Maravilloso de Dalia, which I wrote and illustrated. Now, Dahlia wakes up one day and finds that her hair has grown straight up to the sky, tall and thick as a Cuban royal palm tree. The moment Dahlia sees her hair, she's excited about the possibilities. Unlike me as a child, Dahlia is not concerned with fitting in. But those around her don't approve of her unruly hair. One neighbor even offers to help her get rid of it. You see that machete up in the upper left corner? That is until the end, when Dahlia transforms her unruly hair into a vibrant garden. Now that's Dahlia's Wondrous Hair. And now next we'll talk about Mamá the Alien, Mamá la Extraterrestre. This is written by Renee Colato-Laínez and illustrated by me. In the story, Sophia finds her mother's resident alien card and says, "Oh no, my mother must be an alien from outer space." Does she speak 3 languages? English, Spanish, and alien? Now, I had fun creating these alien characters and their language. Like hello in alien is Zwerf, for example. And do Mama's alien friends take her to play on other planets at night? Mama's scary shadow sure looks like an alien's. But in the end, Sophia learns the difference between being an alien from another planet and an immigrant from another country. Also, she learns that her mama is getting ready for the citizenship ceremony to become a U.S. citizen. Notice the little gift that Sophia has and that she gives to her parents. Now, the author, Renee Colato-Laínez, of this book is a kindergarten teacher in Los Angeles. And he wrote this book after hearing countless stories from his students about parents being deported and labeled as aliens. In the end of his book, Renee reminds his readers, we are all citizens of planet Earth. Okay, so now we're going to talk about The Runaway Piggy, El Cochinito Fugitivo. James Luna wrote this book and I illustrated it. And it's a retelling of a classic, The Gingerbread Man, except it features a cochinito or a piggy cookie, and the piggy cookie is made of pan dulce, Mexican sweetbread. The story is set in a Latino working class neighborhood. So Piggy escapes from the town bakery, meets Lorenzo the mechanic, and runs past Mama Nita's beauty salon, and so on. Eventually, everybody in town is chasing little Piggy. Of course, we all know the fate that awaits El Cochinito. I won't tell you who eats El Cochinito, but I'll give you a hint. And he was delicioso. Before we move on from The Runaway Piggy, I'll talk a little bit about the illustration. The thing that I found the most challenging was creating the animated piggy cookie character. So I needed some help. I looked for some references to help me. And here's what I came up with. And this is really what I used. Real running pigs plus a real piggy cookie equals sketches for my piggy character. And you can see how Piggy evolved from the simpler sketches on the left to the final version on the right with Piggy holding the rose. Here's that same Piggy in full color. Okay, and now that's the Runaway Piggy. We're going to move on to the next book. This is Alicia's Fruity Drinks, Las Aguas Frescas de Alicia. It's written by Lupe Ruiz Flores and illustrated by me. Now the subject of this picture book is the kids' health and the overconsumption of refined sugars in kids' diets. It sounds pretty serious, right? Well, as the illustrator, I was really focused on taking a lighthearted approach and making the illustrations as kid-friendly as I could. Starting here with the cover, where's the lid to that blender? Well, makes it a little more fun that way. And then inside the book, the family dog makes regular appearances. So here Alicia is trying fruity drinks, the aguas frescas, which is a traditional Mexican drink that's made mostly with fresh fruit and water. And there's a puppy. At the end, Sophia convinces her entire soccer team to stop drinking sodas in favor of this healthier alternative. And you'll see in the background the doggy licking the aguas frescas from the table. So why can't the puppy enjoy them too? That's the fun of the illustrator. You can make your own interpretation. And now the next and last book I'm going to show starts with a photograph. This is a photograph of my mother when she was an opera singer in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba. And you can see the arrow is pointing to my mom. Now, because things were difficult in the United States and she didn't have any musical connections and she didn't know the language, sadly, when we all came to the United States, my mother stopped singing. And this is what inspired my next book that I'm going to show, which I wrote and was illustrated by Yuyi Morales, Floating on Mama's Song, Flotando en la Canción de Mamá. Now, in the story, Anita's mom sings so beautifully that every time she sings, people and animals float above the ground. Mama is very happy and everybody is singing. Something goes wrong and Grandma gets scared, and that's inside the book. But at this point, Mama does stop singing. And what happens when Mama stops singing? Everybody is miserable. It takes Anita discovering a family secret to get Mama to eventually sing again at last. There's the grandma, and she's singing too, and everybody's happy. And at the end, Anita says, "My family is happiest when Mama sings and we all float on Mama's song." And now for the last slide, I'm going to show here a photo of my biggest fan, my dog Gigi. And as you can, don't know if you can tell, but she's reading from Flotando en la Canción de Mamá. She likes to mostly read in Spanish. Thank you very much. I'll give it back to Zena or to Lee.
Hi, thanks, Laura.
Sorry.
Hi, everybody.
How do I stop? Got it. I'm sorry, Lee.
No worries. So I don't have slides. I'm going old school. I'm going to share like show and tell. So I'm going to talk about my debut picture book, which is called Red and Green and Blue and White. And actually, you can see something very cool in the light and the reflection on the page. It looks like a broken window. It's actually just the gloss, something very cool that the publisher and the illustrator did. It was illustrated by Paul Zielinski, who is amazing. He's won the Caldecott Medal and has gotten 2 Caldecott honors. And this is his 40th book that he's illustrated. So it was kind of amazing to be paired with him. It was inspired by a true story. I'm going to read you a little bit from the beginning, and then I'll talk a little bit more about why I'm talking about this book in terms of how picture books can help facilitate difficult conversations with kids. So red and green and blue and white. On a block dressed up in red and green, one house shone blue and white. Isaac helped his family decorate their big window for Hanukkah. Across the street, his best friend Teresa helped her family trim their Christmas tree. Isaac wrote poems, and you can see Isaac's poem here. Berries, sky, pine, sky, snow, colors everywhere I go. And Teresa made art. They both loved playing in the snow, counting down to the holidays. 6 nights till Hanukkah, 23 days till Christmas, and thought you couldn't have too many sprinkles on a cookie. When it got dark, Teresa flipped the switch and her house glowed red and green. Across the street, Isaac lit his family's decorative menorah and his house glowed blue and white. And then you can see Isaac's poem dancing across the page, blue and white menorah light. Later, when it was dark and everyone was asleep, shadows approached Isaac's house. Smash! The window shattered, a stone, shards of glass falling, and Isaac, wide awake, watched their menorah flicker out. The adults talked and talked. You'll sleep in our room for now, his dad told Isaac and his sister. Isaac's mom asked, should we light the menorah again? If they didn't, Isaac knew it would be like hiding they were Jewish. That didn't feel right. The next night, Isaac lit the menorah, and through the new window, his house glowed. And then here, this is Teresa's bedroom, and she can see Isaac's poem sort of floating on the air, blue and white menorah light shining bright. Across the street, Teresa watched the menorah come on and let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. She took out paper and markers and drew. When she was done, Teresa added 2 words and put the drawing up in the window. Through the paper, the light shone blue and white, and you can see she wrote on the paper, for Isaac. Isaac saw the drawing and ran outside, and here Isaac's poem builds blue and white menorah light from 2 homes tonight. So this idea catches on, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but in 3 weeks, what actually happened and what happens in the book is that the community gets really excited about this idea of showing their support. And I'll just pick up here. 3 weeks after Isaac and his family stood tall, and Teresa and her family stood up by their side, their whole town was dressed up to celebrate the true spirit of the holidays, the true meaning of community. From more than 10,000 windows came, I don't know if you can see, but there is a menorah in all of those windows. Christmas tree and menorah light, red and green and blue and white, stronger together, shining bright. So I was so inspired by the true story behind this. This is the actual newspaper editorial that ran in the Billings Gazette in 1993. And I'm just gonna, and I had it, kids don't even know what a newspaper is, right? Like, I mean, and the newspapers today are really small or much smaller. They're like really thin. So anyway, I had this reproduced at the size it would have been back in 1993. So this is what the editorial says. On December 2, 1993, someone twisted by hate threw a brick through the window of the home of one of our neighbors, a Jewish family who chose to celebrate the holiday season by displaying a symbol of faith, a menorah, for all to see. Today, members of religious faiths throughout Billings are joining together to ask residents to display the menorah as a symbol of something else, our determination to live together in harmony and our dedication to the principle of religious liberty embodied in the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. We urge all citizens to share in this message by displaying this menorah on a door or a window from now until Christmas. Let all the world know that the irrational hatred of a few cannot destroy what all of us in Billings and in America have worked together so long to build. So I was really inspired and excited, but the issue for me was, well, how do you tell a story about a hate crime, somebody violently breaking a child's bedroom window? How do you tell that story to little kids? Like, how do you make it accessible and not frightening? And how do you do it in a way that felt safe? And so a lot of it for me, after doing a lot of the research, was pulling back because the story was really famous. It was in the New York Times. There was a documentary about it. They started a nonprofit called Not in Our Town. Um, and there were some other books about it, but it was for much older kids. And I was like, well, how do you tell a story about community um, to really young kids? And I thought for me, I kind of needed to pull back from the true story and the metaphor of the decorations, the Christmas lights being red and green and the Hanukkah lights being blue and white, that was a real breakthrough. And then really, how do the kids have agency? And so I really felt like the poems were really important for the boy, for Isaac, because his family has a big decision to make, right? Like that's a real turning point in the book. Do they hide who they are or are they authentic? And then the other turning point is Teresa and how she shows her support, and um, then that also has that sort of. But I didn't want to make it like a savior book, a book about a Christian savior. I wanted it that both children had agency. So it was also sort of nice because one was a poet and one was an artist with words and one was an artist with visual medium. And I like that because also like Paul and I, he was the artist with the pictures and I was the artist with the words. So I thought that was a nice sort of parallel. One of the really cool things we created, and this is available in the download packet, is an activity page. And as you can see, it mirrors the opening page of the book where we said the opening line on a block dressed up in red and green, one house shown blue and white. So the idea behind the activity page is to have your students or your kids decide what they want their community to look like, or maybe what their community does look like. So they can do it like the book. They can do a whole bunch of windows that are all Christmas trees and choose one window that's going to have a menorah. Or they could do the reverse. They could do everybody has a menorah and only one window has a Christmas tree. Or maybe they want to talk about something else, want to explore another idea. Maybe everybody's eating pizza and one family's eating sushi. Or maybe the reverse, everybody's eating sushi and one family's eating pizza. Or everybody has cats and one family has a dog. Or everybody has dogs and one family has a cat. The idea, of course, is that we can still be a community even though we have differences, and those differences are things that we can celebrate rather than make us antagonistic towards one another. And I thought that this was a very elegant way of exploring that. And in fact, what would be really fun is if you challenged the same child to do it multiple ways. Just run it off on a Xerox machine and just give them lots of different possibilities. Because I think that the process of doing that art and drawing can be a really cool way of them acknowledging that they have differences. I mean, we're very quick to judge on differences in our culture about certain things, but then other things we don't pay any attention to at all, right? Like there's a lot of attention being given to skin color, but there isn't a lot of attention given to eye color. And in fact, there was a very famous study about a classroom where they told kids that the kids with one eye color were smarter than the others, and the kids ended up being really mean to each other. And then the teacher the next day came and said, or the study, the lab person, whoever was doing the study, they said, oh, they got it wrong. It was the other way around, that those kids were smarter. And then those kids were kind of mean to the other kids. It's amazing how mean we can be to each other, but it's also amazing how we can be so kind to each other. So I think that as a tool, picture books can be really impactful because they hit you in the heart, right? Like you get goosebumps when you are experiencing a really great picture book, and that's something that as opposed to a child reading it themselves, a picture book is a mediated experience. It is designed for an adult to read with a child, and that is really powerful and can be really beautiful. And that's me. And you can get the activity sheet on the conference website, but also you can go to my website, which is leewind.org, and you can download it there. And thank you all so much. Zena, back to you.
Thanks. Hey, I'm going to just talk really briefly about my process. So Hello Little One was literally born on my campus, and it did not start out as a book about a difficult topic. I'm a big lover of irony, and so I just watched a butterfly, and I remember just thinking, I wonder what would happen if the butterfly and the caterpillar met for the 2 weeks that they can, scientifically speaking. I wonder what would happen. And so it did turn out to be a book about friendship, but at the very end, it does turn out that they do have to say goodbye. Let's see, I'll just read this last part so you can see where that difficult topic came in. Which surprised me because again, this really just was about an irony of like, I wonder what would happen if that happened. And I guess the irony was that the elder would end up dying. I dream of how the wind will rush under my wings when I fly with orange. We'll see so many colors in all the different places together, I say. My life as a butterfly is almost complete. I won't be here when you come out, Orange says. Can you wait for me? I don't think so, but you'll see how amazing it is to fly. But I want to fly with you, I say. I know, but I must go. We all must someday. Will you ever come back, I ask? No, Orange says gently. And there you have that moment. If you are listening in and you have a student that's dealing with grief and loss, we say one last goodbye. A similar thing kind of happened also when I wrote Egyptian Lullaby. My intention was not to really write about a difficult topic. It is really my love letter to Cairo. I'm half Egyptian. And I wrote this story looking out of the window in my father's flat. There was a little sliver in between buildings that I could see the Nile. But as it developed, it does end up having a story that is about loss. It is about missing the homeland and being an immigrant, presumably in the United States or Canada. It could be Canada. And not so much about trying to figure out how to fit in, but really missing the place that you left and possibly not going back. So it says, when Auntie Fatma comes, our house is full of Arabic for 2 whole weeks. It makes me miss Cairo. Don't worry, Auntie says. Once you drink from the Nile, you'll always return. But we have not. So, and then she begins a lullaby, which highlights all of the sounds of the city of Cairo. So again, I, as an author, did not set out to write a story about difficult topics. I set out to write a love letter to Cairo, and it ended up having elements, definitely being about loss, losing the place where your family is from, and where your memories are, and where your culture comes from. So it is a story about loss. And that's Egyptian Lullaby. I have a few more books that are not mine. I'm just going to hold them up really quickly. The Longest Let's Go Boy is another book about loss and grief. Goodbye Bear, another book about loss and grief. Daddy's Paintbrush, again, loss and grief. And then sometimes children come in through our door experiencing many different things. So In the Blue is about depression of a parent. A Blue Kind of Day is about feeling depressed yourself. And then there are books about when you are an outsider and you don't fit in, Patchwork. And from the other perspective, The Recess Queen is about bullying and understanding power and why somebody might use their power inappropriately. Tara's Not Talking is about having special needs and inclusion of all people, abled and disabled. Will It Be Okay? It's just a book about tough questions. We are at a place, a lot of children are feeling climate anxiety, not necessarily maybe knowing exactly what's happening, which is what's causing anxiety. We Are Water Protectors helps to bring in some context about climate anxiety. Sea Bear, again, a story which contextualizes and can facilitate those peer-to-peer conversations, student-led peer-to-peer conversations that can help with climate anxiety. Old Enough to Save the Planet. And unfortunately, I don't have the book because it doesn't come out until March, but Keela Dawson, Lindsay Metcalf, Jeanette Bradley have written a book called No World Too Big. It is the companion book to No Voice Too Small. Racial Injustice, Unspeakable. Racial Injustice and Police Abuse. Something Happened in Our Town. I'm going to do this a little bit quicker. Immigration. Rosa's Song. Japanese Internment. Love in the Library. So I have to say, as a kindergarten teacher, I'm seeing so many titles come up because I think authors, editorial teams, and publishers are willing to are willing to publish books about difficult topics. And so I'm seeing much more than I did when I taught before. So I'm seeing a lot more coming out currently. They, of course, cover many, many, many different topics: loneliness, homelessness, addiction, adoption. They're out there. So I thank you so much for staying with us, and I hope it was valuable. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything on our way out?
Benson, do you have the book sleeve that you can show for Anzu the Great Listener?
Oh yeah, I do. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Lee. So
This is really cool about Ben. We all know each other. We're all friends. Benson has something very cool about his new book.
Thanks, Lee. So yeah, so Anzu the Great Listener. As you know, sometimes picture books have the same cover as the jacket's the same, but in this case, it's slightly different. So if we lift this up, we have slightly a different cover, but we have a fun thing at the back, which is this bonsai facts, but also the cover turns into a poster actually. And then I think this would be great. You could always take it out to laminate for your classroom or even at home. But what it says is, whenever you're feeling upset or overwhelmed and don't know what to do, close your eyes, clear your mind, breathe in, breathe out, and repeat. And yeah, so that's a little fun thing that we can add when we're writing and illustrating books.
And I'll just share that on Red and Green and Blue and White, they did another cool thing on the cover, which is when you take off the broken window, you see that the window has been replaced and it's been kind of fixed. So
That's great.
about a little bit about healing, right?
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. And we really appreciate the time you've spent with us, and we hope it's been helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.